Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. So I am so super excited because I am going to be installing some vermicompost bins in my raised garden beds. Now, vermicomposting is simply a way of using worms to convert things like food scraps, grass clippings, leaves into manure for your garden. The worms are going to do all the work for you. And so the fertilizer or the manure that the worms will produce for you is called worm castings. Not only is it going to give you all of the NPK, like the nitrogen, the phosphorus, and the potassium that your plants need in order to thrive, but it's also going to really help with the fertility of your soil. It's going to improve the soil structure. It's also going to help improve the water holding capacity of the soil. This is the container that you saw me drilling holes in earlier. This is going to be the home for my worms. So I wanted to make it really nice for them. I put holes, don't have no rhyme or reason as to, I didn't measure them out or anything as to where I wanted to place them. I just put holes enough to where the worms can come in and out. I also put holes in the bottom of it. I used a 5/8 of an inch drill bit to put the holes in there. The holes are really going to make it easy for the worms to go in and out. They will eventually come back to their home when they get ready to eat again. So you want to make sure that whatever container you're using, that it is food safe. Now, a lot of times the container should have a number on the bottom. This one is a number 2. So you want to make sure that it has a 1, a 2, a 4, or a 5, because this will let you know that it is food safe. And I don't want to put my worms in something where they're going to be producing manure that I'm going to be using in my garden that can potentially make me sick because the container was not food safe. So be sure and check that out. So I've already dug this hole out here to where I'm going to put my container in. And I'm going to just stick it in just like this. I wanted it preferably to be kind of level with the garden, maybe sticking out just a little bit. So I think I can kind of dig it out just a little bit more. I'm just going to sit in there just like that. Bring the camera closer so you can see. And see, this is why I said I had the hose, because the worms can go in and out of the container and into the garden. I really wanted to make sure though that the holes were not big enough for any type of rodents or other things to get in and harm my worms. So the next step I'm going to do is put it in here like this. Just put some soil around it, to kind of anchor it in place. And I left some of the soil out so that all I had to do was just kind of fill it in. And I can take this bucket in and out if I want to. That shouldn't be a problem. Show you. Okay, so I have some more dirt here. And this is dirt that actually came out of the hole here. Okay, I think that should be good. My next step is to really make it comfortable for my worms, because I don't want to just put them in their new home in an empty bucket. What I'm going to do is I am going to use some compost here, and I'm going to put a layer of compost in this container. I'm not going to fill it all the way up. Just going to fill it part of the way up because I'm going to put quite a few worms in here. And maybe a little bit more. I don't want them to be so deep in here. Just a little bit more. I think that's good. I'm going to break up any big pieces. You don't have to put compost in here. You can put cocoa coir. You can put leaves in here, because worms love to eat leaves as well. Okay. Just one more handful in here. Okay, so that's that. So the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to add some moisture in here. I'm just going to wet it just a little bit. I'm not going to make it soggy wet. I just want it to be moist enough for the worms, because the worms breathe through their skin and they absorb or either they lose moisture through the skin. So I want to make sure that they are really comfortable while they're in here. So I'm going to give it a little bit of water. That's why I got the hose in here so that the water can run out. And I'm just going to kind of stir it up a little bit so it'll be nice and moist. It's not soggy wet, but it's wet enough to where the worms will be able to breathe and feel comfortable in their new environment. Okay, so now it's time to get the worms. Now I like to use the red wigglers because they are good composting worms. And I have an earthworm here. I'm gonna show you the difference between the two of them. Because I used to wonder, why not just use earthworms instead of red wigglers? But there's a difference in these worms, the earthworms that you see in the ground and these red wigglers that I'm gonna use for composting. Now the worms I ordered, they look a little like they're drugged, but they're not, because they are have been shipped, so they'll kind of perk up when they get into their new home. So I got a red wiggler. I don't know if you can see it here. So this is a red wiggler, and it's really thin when you compare it to this one, and this is your typical earthworm that you may find in your backyard garden. See how much bigger it is? So that is one of the key differences. They both eat the same amount of food though. Come on, it's trying to get away from me here. Let me see if I can put it back in my hand. I'm gonna put you in your new home in just a moment. Both the red wiggler and the earthworm can eat about half their weight per day in food. Can you believe that? Now the red wiggler is going to live several inches below the soil surface, whereas the earthworm is going to live deep below the soil surface, which is why the red wigglers are so much better for composting, because they're going to have that manure right near the surface of the soil. The earthworm is going to lay their worm manure way deeper under the soil, so you have to really dig down to get that good manure. The earthworm can tolerate colder temperatures. He's getting mad now. They don't like the light, so I'm gonna hurry up and put it in the soil. The red wiggler really prefers the warm temperatures, so both can really help you get healthy soil. Let me show you what the worms look like. I think they pack them in stuff like maybe peat moss. You can see quite a few of them here, and I don't want to lose them, so I'm going to put them in my bin here. Some of them. And then I got another bin that I'm going to add some worms to as well. So I don't know if you can see the worm being right there. That's another one that I'm doing at the same time I'm doing this one. So I'm just going to take these over there and add, oops, water down, and that worm being over there. So let me just go put some in there. Okay, so here are the worms. They look a little skinny and puny looking, but you know, they look like that when you first get them, and then as they get acclimated to their new home, then they will plump up and they will become more alert and more alive and everything. And one thing I thought it was interesting about these worms is that they reproduce every 90 days. This brown stuff is really just peat moss. It helps to keep the worms from freezing in the wintertime, and it also helps them from overheating in the summertime until they get to their destination. Yeah, so I'm just going to add just a little more water, even though I added to the soil already. Let's just cover it up. I'm not going to feed them right now. They do have some compost in there, so I didn't put any holes in the lids or anything. I'm not going to snap this lid. I'm just going to put a brick or something on the top so that can help to keep any critters out. Now you got your worms in your bin, so what do? So I'm going to leave them in here, come back and check on them, let them get acclimated to their new home, and maybe in about 3 or 4 days I may come and give them some food scraps, but not a lot. One thing about feeding your worms is you don't want to overfeed them. You want to make sure that they eat all the food that you've put in there down before you start adding more food, because it's just going to build up and it might turn into a mushy, stinky mess, and you don't want that to happen. And then this will give you a chance to see what your worms like to eat. Now, if you have something in there that has been in there for quite a while and the worms ate everything else, but they didn't eat that, maybe they don't like it. So don't put it back in there, because, you know, worms, for the most part, are not really picky eaters, but they will let you know what they like and what they don't like. So don't add any, feed them too much food. And once you see that they've eaten all the food scraps that you put in there and you like the quality of the worm castings that's in there, you can sprinkle them around your garden or use them for nourishment. Another thing is, you don't want to keep it too wet. You want to make sure that it's not too soggy with water, and you want to make sure it's not too dry. So just keep a check on that part of it. So worms love to eat banana peels. They like leafy green vegetables. They do love shredded paper, shredded cardboard, no glossy paper. They will eat your tea bags, your coffee filters. They really love crushed eggshells. But now when you use the crushed eggshells or the banana peels or the coffee filters, I like to really cut them up really well so that they're not in big pieces. And I also like to feed my worm grass clippings, but it's not like fresh grass clippings. I let it dry out a bit, and also leaves. Some of the things that you should absolutely not feed your worms are spicy foods, like chili, onions, garlic, no meat, no milk products, no pasta, no processed foods. They can eat citrus, but maybe in small quantities. No oils or liquids like soup or anything like that. I'm sure there are a lot of things that I didn't mention that worms can eat and can't eat, so I just advise that you do your research if you really are interested in starting your own vermicompost bin, to find out exactly what you can feed your worms and what not to feed them. I have really enjoyed making this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye bye.